Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this. Did you know that women drive anywhere from 70 to 80% of all consumer purchasing decisions? Yeah, 70 to 80%. I mean, that is a staggering statistic, right? It's one of those numbers that completely shifts the gravity of the conversation we're having today. What we're unpacking here is a fascinating, foundational, and just distinctly human-first business philosophy all about female dynamics in the modern commercial world. You know, for decades, business strategies have kind of treated demographics as just, well, mere data points on a spreadsheet. But the reality of market influence? It's so much deeper. And honestly, it's so much more interesting than that. If you really pay attention to the structure of these arguments, it'll absolutely change how you view your everyday interactions, your product development, and your whole market strategy. It's about waking up to the fact that the key to unlocking massive commercial value isn't hiding in some new algorithm. Nope, it's found in deeply understanding human dynamics. So let's get right to it. So what did business school miss? It's a pretty provocative question, isn't it? When we think about formal, traditional business education, we usually picture the absolute bedrock of commerce being taught. You know, supply chain optimization, margin analysis, Porter's 5 forces, maybe some light game theory thrown in for good measure. We just kind of assume we're being handed all the tactical tools to go out and conquer the market. But traditional academic frameworks have a massive, glaring omission. Historically, they approach the market through this hyper-efficient, largely male-centric economic lens, a lens that basically views human beings as completely rational, isolated transactional nodes. They teach you how to balance a ledger. Actually, scratch that. They drill ledger balancing into you, but they rarely teach the nuanced underlying human dynamics that actually compel a real person to make a purchase in the real world. This foundational knowledge about female dynamics is incredibly unique because it operates entirely outside of those standard spreadsheets. It asks us to open our minds to a totally different type of understanding, one where emotional intelligence, community context, and relational value are finally recognized as the true drivers of modern economic success.
And that brings us to this incredibly bold but totally accurate central claim. Women are the mother lode. I want to pause on that metaphor for just a second. In mining, the mother lode is the principal vein of ore, right? It's the massive foundational source from which literally all other value flows. By taking that exact terminology and applying it to business, we aren't just saying women are an important demographic or some niche market segment. Absolutely not. We are framing female dynamics as the absolute core of business value. But why? Well, because in practice, a female consumer is rarely just buying for herself. She is essentially the chief purchasing officer of the modern world. Think about it. She buys for her kids, her partner, her aging parents, her friends. And it doesn't stop at the grocery store. Her influence extends directly into B2B environments, major healthcare choices, and massive automotive purchases. When a business captures this mother lode, they aren't just winning a single one-off transaction. They are winning an entire network. They're tapping into this incredible multiplier effect that spreads like wildfire through communities, families, and corporate boards. When you truly grasp the sheer weight of that interconnected purchasing power, you start to see exactly why this immense foundational reservoir of potential is so often completely misunderstood by standard curriculums.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the comparison of business environments before and after the pandemic. We all know the pandemic was an era-defining disruption. I mean, it shattered global supply chains, upended consumer habits practically overnight, and proved that most of our quote-unquote rock-solid business models were actually incredibly fragile. The whole world was forced to pivot. And yet, the core skills required to understand and leverage this mother lode remained exactly the same before and after that massive disruption. Why is that? Because these skills are fundamentally unshakable. We're talking about relational intelligence here. We're talking about the ability to build long-term brand trust, the capacity for context-driven communication, and the crucial skill of anticipating holistic needs, rather than just aggressively pushing a standalone product. While superficial tech trends and hyper-optimized ad algorithms completely crashed during global uncertainty, relationship-centric problem-solving held strong. These core skills don't rely on a specific economic climate, or a bull market, or a perfectly running supply chain. They are a timeless anchor, deeply rooted in permanent human nature.
And this brilliantly illustrates the absolute core of this philosophy. Identity comes way before the transaction. Women are females first and consumers second. Traditional business training tends to train us to view people primarily through a really dry transactional lens, as just consumers, users, or purchasers. But if you only look at the transactional layer, you are completely missing the underlying drivers of behavior. Let's ground this in reality for a second. Imagine a financial services firm trying to win a new client. If they treat her purely as a consumer, they'll sit her down and just pitch interest rates, ROI percentages, and standard asset allocation. It's dry, it's transactional, and honestly, it entirely misses the mark. But if they approach her with the understanding that she is a female first, they recognize her broader context. They understand she might be balancing her own career ambitions with caregiving for aging parents, or maybe she's planning for generational wealth and community impact. The firm that focuses solely on the transaction, they get a polite nod. But the firm that designs their approach around her holistic identity, they get a lifelong, deeply loyal client. The human element absolutely dictates the rules of engagement long before the actual act of consuming ever takes place.
So why does failing to understand this matter so much? Well, because it leads directly to a massive hidden vulnerability, the blind spot. If a company only views women as consumers and completely fails to appreciate that deep, holistic identity we just talked about, they step right into a massive strategic trap. So what does this business blind spot look like in practice? It looks like the infamous shrink it and pink it marketing strategy. You know, the one where companies simply take a product designed for men, make it a little smaller, slap some pink paint on it, and then wonder why it fails miserably. It looks like millions of dollars wasted on totally tone-deaf ad spend. It results in high customer churn and, worst of all, active brand alienation. When a business operates with this blind spot, they just assume a one-size-fits-all, male default transactional approach works across the board. They can't see that their messaging is actively repelling the single most powerful economic force in the market. Recognizing the females first dynamic is literally the only way to clear your vision, avoid those tone-deaf strategies, and actually capture that immense value.
So the absolutely crucial point here is, are you watching the blind spot? We've traced the logic, right? From the glaring gaps in traditional business school, all the way to the immense networked value of the mother lode. We've seen how these core relational skills are completely immune to global disruptions, right down to the fundamental shift of respecting identity before transaction. The map is drawn for us, but it's really up to you to navigate it in your own professional life. How will you take this incredibly powerful philosophy and use it to audit your own strategies? Ask yourself, are your current product designs, your sales funnels, and your everyday market interactions treating people as consumers first, leaving you dangerously exposed to this exact blind spot? It is a fascinating challenge to walk away with today, because realizing the true drivers of market influence, it changes the whole shebang. Keep learning, keep questioning your frameworks, and we will see you next time for our next explainer.